What is salvia? Salvia is a very strange substance. Well, technically, salvia is just a plant. However, it's the active chemical salvinorn A that makes salvia so strange. It's a psychoactive compound, but it's far different than other psychedelics. The effects are quite interesting to say the least. On a lower dose, it may not feel too different from another substance. It can do things like distort time and warp your perception a little bit. You get kind of a weird feeling, and people often describe that they feel gravity is pulling them in a different direction, but on the higher doses is where things get strange. On a relatively high dose, one very common thing that happens to people is becoming inanimate objects. People will become a telephone, a glass of orange juice, a light bulb. You might think that sounds fun, but it is not. People who have claimed to have become inanimate objects say it is rather horrifying, and this is because of a couple major things. One, for whatever reason, salvia seems to erase all your memories of ever being human if you've reached this stage. People who become, for example, a light bulb will say that that's all they remember ever being. They have no memory of ever being human. In fact, there's no transition, there's no start. It's not like you took a hit of the salvia and then boom, your light bulb. No, it feels like you always were that in the same way that it feels like you've always been human. On top of that, salvia only lasts about 5 minutes in real life, but people say that they experience becoming these objects for up to 6 months or even longer in certain extreme cases. Becoming an object like this would not be fun. On top of it, it's very convincing. People can say that they feel every bit of whatever object they are. On an even higher dose, it gets even stranger. People claim to live entirely different lives. Steve Cantwell, for example, claimed to have lived for 8 years as another person. I'll link his video if you guys are interested in learning more about that. Famous comedian Ari Shaffir claimed to have lived 6 months as some underwater entity in a different world, and he actually did the salvia on stream. You can find his reaction to that in some places on the internet. But yes, as you can see, becoming things in other universes is also not limited to being human. People enter all sorts of realities with different rules of space and time. They'll become completely different species, and they will have generally zero memory of ever having been human. It almost tricks you into believing this is what you've always been. These are just some basic effects of salvia. The effects can range drastically. So what is going on here? Why do people experience these things? Well, to start, salvia affects your brain in a different way than most psychoactive compounds do. It affects a different part of your brain. It does not affect the serotonin receptor, but it affects a lesser known part of the brain, the kappa opioid receptor, which people don't know its full use yet, but many have begun to theorize because of this drug that it may be what houses your consciousness. On a low dose, it gets a little shaky, but as you increase, your consciousness may get launched out onto some object or on a high enough dose into a completely different universe. If you'd like more detailed information on this substance, I'd suggest you check out the Salvia page on airwood.com. I'll leave a link to that below as well.